As I was preparing this message, Created for More, the image that kept coming to mind was about identity theft. Identity theft. This morning I ministered and I talked about how the enemy has taken and attacked the family. And in attacking the family, he has attacked what I believe is the linchpin of society. The marriage unit, the family unit, and if he can get that to crumble, then all else, I believe, according to God's design for the way we can be successful, begins to crumble. And so I do not think it's ironic that he's attacked men on television through cartoons and through comedies and made us inept and made us incompetent and made us stupid, and now he's attacking the marriage and the family as a whole. Well, in the same way, I believe that he does that to you and I, individually. Individually. You can take, I tell people all the time, you can take the richest man in the world and remove his hope and remove what he has placed his identity in many times, which is his money. And then you can take a kid who has struggled, who has never had anything, and give them an identity, and they'll thrive. And the only thing, the difference is that one has hope in who he is and what he has, and the other one does not. And when you flip it, the exact reverse happens. And so, if you were the devil, what would you do? What would you do? I would spend my time making the human creation, God's greatest creation, I would spend my time making them live beneath their calling. I would spend my time causing them to settle for less. Even when one decides that there's something that they want to do, I would still make them go, not quite so much. Even those who decide that I'm doing something for God, I would make them settle for seventh place instead of first place. In other words, I believe that even when we decide to fight for God, the enemy doesn't back away. I believe he still wants us to think less of ourselves. And this is not an arrogance thing. It's just a fact of who you are. And so tonight, I'm going to use the word more to give you 4 points that I think if we'll understand these 4 principles, that we will understand that we were created for more. Why do I want that to happen? I am convinced that a few sold out people for God can change a city. I really believe that God can use a few sold out people to change the world. How many of you have ever been by a fire and didn't stop and look at it? I mean, every time you see a fire, what do? It doesn't matter how big or how small, it catches your attention. And I want to create a body of believers through this opportunity. I want to inspire and incite and encourage and empower and equip people to be on fire for Jesus in every aspect of their life, to walk after God with everything within them. I think it was D.L. Moody who made the statement, or someone made the statement to him, the world is yet to see what can happen through a man or woman who is completely sold out to God. And D.L. Moody, from that point on, said, I want to be that man. And he began to live his life in such a way. I love the fact that this man never graduated high school, but yet there's a Bible institute after him, and hundreds of radio stations and numerous libraries. And I mean, it's just unbelievable the impact he had after that happened. And it all started from him working. When he tried to join the church, they told him, dude, you are hopeless. You know so little about God and the Bible and the way he does things, you can't even be a member. And so he started off in a little store meeting with little poor kids, many of them who were black. And in the 1800s, that was a major deal. And from that, God still to this day is impacting the world. So you today, with all of your access to technology and the things that God has given us in this age, when you think about it, you can sit in your room and touch the world. From your little room, you could record yourself saying something that God has said, and it could catch on fire and change the entire world. And I'm just crazy enough to believe that that's possible, that God, in God's hands, it can happen. Created for more. The M is for you're made in God's image and likeness. Made in the image and likeness of God. Genesis 1:26 says, Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. Let us make mankind in our image and in our likeness. Now, image, if they tell you an image, they say, did you see that image of something? That means that it was a representation of something. If there's an image you look at, it tells you about that God. And I when I hear God say that, I think, wow, what does that mean, God? And then when you look at how God describes himself as being loving and compassionate, but he also describes himself as a creator, and I'm thinking, wow, that is us. That means that I have some of the very characteristics of God he put in me. And I am always amazed at how the church doesn't recognize that we were made in God's image and likeness. And when we think about that, if you were the devil, what would you spend your time doing? You would convince us that we're worthless, that our body shapes determine our worth, that our skin color determines our worth. You would spend time convincing us that our money determines our worth, that our friends or our material possessions determine our worth. But God says that you were made in his image and his likeness. And I think that when you combine those two, we are a threefold being. And that we're going to live forever, one way or the other. And that's part of that being made in God's image and likeness. And that's why it's important that we share the gospel with people, because we're going to live forever, one place or the other. There's no in between. But more importantly than all of that, let me ask you this. If you woke up tomorrow and you were the son or daughter, just track with me, of Bill Gates. If you're the son or daughter of Bill Gates, one of the richest men in the world, how many of you have had any financial concerns? Or watch this, how many of you even had a desire that you wanted something? How many of you would have that concern if you were the child of Bill Gates that you now worry about? Would it change who your father is? Would it change your perception of problems, of circumstances, and of situations? Who we are would change that. So if you were the devil, wouldn't you spend all of your time trying to keep us from recognizing and realizing what that really means? That you are made in his image and his likeness. That you are his child. That you are his daughter. You are his son. That your father is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He created everything out of nothing, simply through his spoken word. And that is who you were created to be like, to be in the image of. You were created for more. And it starts by recognizing that your identity is found in Jesus Christ And your identity is found in Him and Him alone. That you are the child of the Most High God, the creator of all the universe. And He has chosen to come and live within us and live out and express Himself through us. I love the next part. Oh, your days were ordained by God. Your days are ordained by God. Psalm 139, 13 through 18 says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast is the sum of them." This is one of my favorite passages of Scripture. "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb." He didn't throw you together. He knit you together. Anyone in here ever knitted? I have not. But from my understanding, that you usually start with a pattern, right? You usually start with a pattern, and whatever you knit was based on the pattern. And the better knitter you are, the closer you are to the pattern. Well, God's a pretty good knitter, and He designed you with your likes and dislikes, your personality and your strengths and your weaknesses for a purpose. You're not an accident. You're not a mistake. And I love that it says He ordained our days before they were written. And I wonder how many times do people walk into heaven and God goes, "I know you thought you had it good, but there was so much more. There was so much more for you." They say the greatest wealth in the world is a cemetery because so many people die with their potential still unfulfilled. I like to say that they died with their song inside of them. Why? I'm 43 years old. Had a decent job and loved it. But I told my wife, I said, "Baby, I cannot, as good as that is, that's not who I was created to be. That's not what I was created for. And if I don't do something, I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to go crazy unless I do what God's called me to do." Now, if I could have just had a studio full of people that I could have loved on each time I talked on the radio, I'd probably have been okay. But I love people. I love being around people. I love encouraging people. I love interacting and engaging with people. And I did not want to die not having given it all to really expound and explore what God could do through the gifting that He's given me. But He's given every one of us a gift. He's given every one of us a passion. There's a song inside of every one of us that He has put there for a reason. I look at my son, my adopted son, Tony, and I look at him, and he's a coach. And he and I were talking, I guess it was 5-6 years ago, and I told him he's pastoring those kids. And he's out there in their world, just like a pastor that stands behind the pulpit. And that's his passion. And he doesn't have to give up that to fulfill the ministry side of what God's created him to be. And each one of you has something like that inside of you. Don't let it go. Step out and trust God. God has ordained your steps. And it says, "How precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast the sum of them." And so I asked God one time, I said, "Well, God, it says, how precious are your thoughts. Well, what are your thoughts toward me? It says that you have so many thoughts toward me, so the word should tell me what those thoughts are." And you can read in Jeremiah 29:11, it says, For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Or one says, the thoughts I have for you, Lord. Plans, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. So that's